Hey friends, in today's episode of How to Fix Your Plantar Fasciitis, we are going to get into the calves. If you have plantar fasciitis, you have tight calves. In starting our release work, this is my favorite massager to release the calves. The reason being, a lot of people are really tight along the peroneal line right here, so you can really get into this pointy guy and really dig in. You can also really dig into the back of the calf. It's also, this particular attachment is kind of squishy on top, and you can get into the top of the foot and start to relieve some of the tension there. So I'm going to show you what to basically do with the foam roller first, but this is a totally solid option. I like those better than things like the Theraguns because it does this and this at the same time. It's two different options on this one, whereas the Theragun kind of just more so pummels. So first, how you would release the shins if you're not going to have a massager like that, you would just get straight on top. And you're kind of doing a little tuck. So what I'm doing is this. I can also change my feet and put my feet in different positions and it'll hit different aspects of my shin. With that massager, I would just take probably the more squishy, gentle part and get at the top of my shin. And then this has been my other favorite thing lately while recording this series because you can really dig in. You can get the calf in the middle there, or you can kind of divide what we sort of think of as the calf muscle right in the middle of this. So here I'm just going back and forth. If I really wanted to be brutal on myself, I could cross leg over leg. I can kind of turn as well. One thing that's also nice about this wooden roller is that I can really get down at the Achilles. And I think that a lot of people who have plantar fasciitis, it's that the soleus and the plantaris, which kind of are right around the Achilles and contiguous into the Achilles, that's actually what's tight. But the gastrocnemius, which is the muscle up in here in the calf, like right behind the knee, that people are weak in that muscle. So that's something that we're going to look at in the span of this series today. Another helpful release that you could do is if you have an inversion table or access to an inversion table, see if tractioning your ankles helps alleviate some of your calf tension and improve your plantar fasciitis symptoms at the heel or just tight feet in general. Okay. Next, we're going to get into another way that you can do some different release work without all of this, but just using your hands. Next, I'm just going to release my calf muscles with my digits. First, I'm going to, right here on this side, it's where the fibular head, so you have the tibia and the fibula is your side calf muscle. I'm going to try to hook and kind of roll outwards like this. And I'm not using a ton of pressure here, like I'm really not cranking it. I always say that this is kind of what you would do to a small child. And as I do that, I'm taking my other hand and I'm kind of also trying to roll, essentially with both of these, and traction. So I call it like I'm uncoiling because you might have the subtlety to feel like your leg starts to get longer as you do this. Now in the next video, I'm going to focus on what you would do further into the foot. For now, we're just going to stay on this idea of pinning and stretching. So I'm hooking behind that bone right there, and I'm tractioning. And I'm just going to kind of keep pulling and wringing down my calf. Okay, we'll do that on the other side. So I'm hooking and tractioning. And remember that when we're talking about plantar fasciitis, we're also just talking about all of the tissue being tight. So another thing here is I'm not thinking deep tissue massage here. I'm actually staying pretty close to the surface. I'm not trying to grab onto my whole calf. And then another spot I'm going to try to dig into with my fingers. This is a little difficult to do to yourself. It's another reason why I like having that massager, is I'm going to try to, as best I can, we have these two, the gastrocnemius, the heads of the gastroc is what it's called. I'm going to try to get in there with my finger and separate those two muscles. So if your fascia is really tight, you may not even feel like you can separate those two guys, but that's kind of what you're going for, is I'm going like this, and then I'm pulling apart, or kind of like, sort of like an opposite motion of what you do, or some motion whenever you bake bread. So I'm going to over dramatize a little bit what I'm doing here with my hands. And I'm going to take that down pretty far down, but where I'm really trying to hone in is this upper third close to the knee. And it might be tender in there, and if you can, in this case, dig in there. Because the muscles that are under there, there's one in particular, I think that's a reason why people get all of this tight fascia and plantar fasciitis, is actually a tight and underactive posterior tibialis. So basically the muscle that's behind this shin bone here. And with any of these, feel free to stay there as long as you want. I'm going for the other side. Spreading the bread of my calf. And you might find it easier to dig into one or get into one than the other. Okay, and then we are next going to get into stretching the calves with a focus on a fascial stretch. All right, next I'm going to be showing you this muscle and fascial calf stretch with the DCT ProFlex. I'll put a link on how to purchase this. You could totally use a towel or a TheraBand, but trust me, if you have tight feet, tight calves, plantar fasciitis, either now or in the past, which is why I assume you're watching this, totally worth the investment. It's a little over $100, but you can't really screw it up. You'll have it for forever. So I'm gonna lean back. If I want to make this more intense, I would have this leg straight, less intense, leg is bent. I'm gonna focus on using those heads of the gastrocnemius again. So I'm thinking of a slow pushing foot on the gas. It's okay here if you don't have the range of motion to have your leg straight to be like this. You could also play with, if that knee is bent, you might be able to straighten it more easily. I often think of this as I'm pushing, that it's almost like a fern frond unfurling from my hamstring down to my foot. So you want to feel like that's coming from the ball of the foot. You're not scrunching your toes. So I'm pushing with my foot, but then I'm going to allow my hands to win, and I'm pulling backwards. So I always say to people, it's kind of like you're pushing 10 miles an hour, and then your hands win at about 15. We'll do 2 more. So this is my active calf muscle stretch. And then now I'm going to go for the fascial stretch, which will stretch the whole back of the thigh. So I'm going to bend my knee. I'm going to try to anchor my tailbone, which is right there. So when you think of like right in the crack, so to speak. And then I'm going to push through my heel to straighten my leg. I'm going to do that 2 more times. Each time I'm thinking of getting more perpendicular, but only as far as I can really tack the base of my spine to the table, so I'm not like butt cheeks tensed. I'm then going to turn my leg out. I'm going to do the same thing for 3. And then I'm going to turn my leg in. This one I find that not everybody has this range of motion because they get really grippy in the front of the thighs, so then I just don't have them do this stretch. And then I come across the body and I'm going back to foot on the gas and letting my hands win for 3. So this is kind of a combo fascial plus active muscle stretch. Okay. So we'll do that on the other side, and then we are going to use this to stretch the shin. And that's another reason why I really like having this boot. So I'm leaning back again. I'm doing my active, trying to find just below the back of the knee. Pull back with my hands win. I can do a little eversion, inversion to stretch my ankle. I'm gonna do 5 of these. Also note that my foot is flat. I'm not craning my foot to one side or another. And then I'm gonna go for my bend and straighten for 3 each. Now, one of the main reasons why I bought this boot was to be able to stretch the shin. A lot of people have tight shins, weak shins as well, and it's really difficult to figure out how to stretch them or how to strengthen them. So I'll show you that here in a moment. You can stretch this, or you can stretch the fronts of the shins. I'll post a link here to something I've recorded in the past for that. One more. Okay. So here's the cool part. I can just reverse this. Now I flex my foot and pull back. So this is what's more difficult if you, and then I can do my fascial stretch like so, if you just were trying to do this with a towel. And then if you actually do purchase this off of Amazon, it comes with a DVD of how to run through all of this, but this is more or less the content that's on the DVD. And then I go in for my fascial. I can do a little wave of my leg. I can come across the body. I just forgot to mention this or use this in this last segment with the calf boot. Voodoo floss, you can actually kind of shrink wrap your calf and even squeeze it while you're doing that stretch with the boot, or even if you choose not to do the boot and just use a towel. This will intensify the fascial release and fascial stretch as you're doing that stretch. I'll post a link to this as well. And then lastly, we'll activate the calves just to get them going again. So strengthening the ankles. Again, we're focusing not on this lower portion, because I think that that's more of what people tend to be tight and dominant in. We really want to hone in on this upper portion. I'm also showing you this on flat ground. It would be nice if you had a negative to where you could actually kind of like so allow your heel to drop and raise in a larger range of motion. So we're going to do all 3 ankle positions. And I would encourage you to hold on to something and you're coming up. You want to, the ball there just helps keep me honest, that way I'm not bowing out at the ankle. You want to also feel like you're coming more straight up rather than forward, which is another reason why I would actually prefer to be like so. As I come up that way, people tend to tense their butt and come up. Then I'm going to turn my toes out, heels together. I could keep the ball there for that as well. And I'm coming up. I tried finding this on a study, but I had a client who had an overly strained Achilles, and their podiatrist said that one should have the amount of calf strength to be able to do 60 individual calf raises, so on one leg. And I have to say, I'm finally at that point with each of these, and it took a few months to be able to, do 60, 60, and 60 on each leg. And then toes together. And then from the side, that looks like so. And this is a big one here to not roll out, but to try to keep the weight more over the first and second toe lines. The amount of calf and foot tension that can come with tight calves and feet and plantar fasciitis can be pretty thick. So I'd say if you go back through some of the past episodes, and even as I post some of the future episodes, so you can subscribe to get notified of those. But doubling back and redoing this content, and then coming back to the content that we did in this one, you might find that you chip away at layers of tension in the fascia of your calves, feet, ankles, and even the hamstrings. Thanks for watching, and please feel free to post any questions or comments that you have below. Thanks.